You're listening to the Just Japan podcast. Everything you want to know about Japan.
Hey there, folks, and welcome to episode number 205 of the Just Japan podcast. My name's Kevin O'Shea. I'm a Canadian who shares the stories of fascinating expats living in Japan with all of you. That's right. It is the first week of December. I'm recording this on the evening of December the 4th. Hopefully we'll have this out to you on Tuesday the 5th. And I'm doing pretty good, everyone. Now, in this week's episode, I'm going to be sitting back. Well, I'm going to be chatting. You're going to sit back and listen. I'm going to be chatting with probably one of the most iconic guests of the Just Japan podcast. In the original years of recording the show, Jim Mullins, a.k.a. Mully, was a guest on the Just Japan podcast more than 24 times. He was featured in episode number 1 of the podcast back in 2014 when we talked about him being a long-term expat in Japan. And that was almost 10 years ago. And guess what? He's an even more long-term expat in Japan because he's still in Japan. So in this episode, I get to catch up with Jim Mullins, a.k.a. Mully, Colonel Mully, and we had a fantastic conversation. Now, the thing is, folks, in the years following me leaving Japan, Jim and I weren't in contact so much. And it got to the point where Jim and I actually, until this conversation, this interview that you're going to hear tonight, hadn't really even spoken to each other at all in several years. We in no way had any kind of falling out. Jim is still a great friend of mine. He's on Facebook. I see him on Facebook all the time doing live videos and things like this. But Jim basically stopped doing other social media. He got off Twitter. He stopped doing YouTube and all these different things. And, you know, that happens sometimes when people move to different countries. They drift apart with friends. And unfortunate, but it was such a wonderful conversation. And what you're going to hear in this episode is basically me and Jim simply just catching up, talking together for the first time in years. And you get to sit and eavesdrop. And he's talking to you as well, as am I. But you'll hear him kind of reverse the role of, and he becomes the interviewer often, and he asks me a lot of questions because we're basically catching up on a lot of time lost. So the years I was in China, the years I lived through zero COVID with my family, and now here in Malaysia. So a real treat for you guys. Jim Mullins he was the number 2 most returning guest on the Just Japan podcast behind my friend PJ. So sit back and listen to this fascinating conversation with someone who's been living in Shizuoka, Japan for about 30 years. And you guys are going to enjoy it. So here we go. Hey guys, we're here with another episode of the podcast, and I'm really excited about this one because this is a reunion, a catch-up. I am actually interviewing the first guest ever on the Just Japan podcast, which was recorded back in March. You were number 1, sir. Yes, you were.
Huh.
And it was a very big episode. It was so March of 2014 is when I recorded the first episode of the Just Japan podcast, and I recorded more than 200 episodes of it. And you were the guest of episode number 1, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Jim Mullins, aka Mully.
Yay! The crowd goes wild.
Yes.
Hi, Kev.
Hey.
Now, you and I haven't talked in quite a while.
I know. We have not.
I mean, not even podcastily.
Exactly. We just haven't talked. I have to admit, sometimes I'm really good at over communicating in some ways. In other ways, maybe I'm not so good at communicating.
Well, like you moved off to China.
Yeah.
And that kind of, you move away like that. That kind of happens. I mean, we were far enough from each other to begin with.
Yes, that is true. That is true. And
the fact that we stayed in touch even when you were here, because, we live, it's a 6-hour drive down to your place.
Yeah. So, folks, I'll give you a little context if you're new to this. If you didn't listen to the Just Japan podcast, which I reference often, now the Just Asia podcast, Jim is a friend of mine who was on, I think, oh my gosh, close to probably 20 episodes of the podcast. You're on a lot.
Been in a lot.
You're on a lot, and
I was like your fail safe. Like whenever
there were two of you. There were two of you. It was you and PJ.
Yeah.
It was like, oh wow, I need to put out an episode this week, and I don't want to break schedule, but either guest canceled, guest canceled, guest isn't showing up, or I just didn't contact. I have no idea what's going on. And you and PJ were always great to be like, yeah, sure, and you'd be like, what's the topic? I'm like, I don't know. I'd be like, give me half an hour and I'll send you something. And
right.
Often I'd send you something. You'd be like, Kevin, I don't know what the hell this is about. I can't talk about this. I'm like,
and then we'd start talking about that and veer off and do something totally different.
Exactly. And you know what? The thing is, I have still to this day get comments from people. Comments and messages from people who keep requesting you. They're like, Kevin, when I want to hear you talking to Mully again. I want to hear Mully. What's Mully doing?
Thank you guys.
Yeah,
glad to be back.
Yeah, so just before we get into catching up, if you could just tell the listeners, like, where the heck are you, and where are you from?
Okay, well,
where you're from and where the heck are you?
I'm in Japan, in Shizuoka. And that's what you're talking about, right? You're not like
yeah. That's what I mean.
Right?
That's what I mean.
Yeah, okay. Because I'm not very active on social media much anymore.
Mm-hmm.
My YouTube channel's kind of slowed down to turtle pace, and I don't do my blogging. I totally quit Twitter about 3 years ago, and I stay on Facebook to keep in touch with friends, but that's about it. I don't.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I'm in Shizuoka, Japan, and I'm originally from Cincinnati, Ohio, Northern Kentucky. I've been in Japan. Well, this year's 32 years that I've been here. Yeah, a long time, right?
Well, the whole topic of that first episode of Just Japan podcast, I just looked at it now, and it was the long-term expat. So the long-term foreigner living in Japan.
And that was 10 years ago? So that was about 22 years, right?
Yeah. You were a few over 20, and that was a long time ago now. Wow. So
I was still green.
Exactly. Now you're finally learning something.
Yeah.
But yeah, so folks, so I just, again, Jim is someone, AKA Mully, someone I just, it's great to talk to. I've always enjoyed having you on the podcast. And so now it's time to catch up.
Being on the podcast.
Yeah. And now you're on this podcast, the Just Asia podcast, which essentially is the same podcast. Just by removing the Japan part, I can have guests from a few other places too. Sure. Here we are, and just before we started recording, Jim was asking me how I'm doing.
Yeah,
it's been a while.
You and I haven't talked in a long time.
That's right. And for those of you who don't know, our history of Jim and I together, when we first met, we met through social media, and we met by doing YouTube, by being video bloggers, vloggers, J-vloggers. And we're up in Shizuoka, which is, in the same prefecture where one finds that Mount Fuji. And I was in.
I remember, Kevin, I still remember that first shout out you gave my channel.
Oh, okay.
You're like, there's this American guy up in Shizuoka. His name Mully or something like that. And you were like in a parking garage or something.
That sounds about right.
Garage. Yeah.
That was one thing I used to love to do in the early days of YouTube, of the kind of J-vlogging community, before it was even called that. I used to really love shouting out people. I knew people's new channel. That was always a great thing, because it was always, at the time, although I wasn't the biggest fish in the pond, at the time, with the numbers I had, I was one of the bigger fish in the pond with, having 15,000 or so maybe in those days, 15, 16,000 subscribers. And I used to just love it when some new person would come along and put out some content that was really fun or cool, and just to shout them out and get them a start. And there was a lot of that kind of community building back in the early days of YouTube, which was a lot of fun. And I mean, it was fun. Yeah,
well, Kev, if you remember, here's something that's going to dig into your vaults here.
Okay.
If you remember this, it was my very first video that got me started on YouTube. Right?
Your first video went viral, didn't it?
My very first video, I won Video of the Year award from YouTube Japan for 2010.
Wow.
Yeah, I've got the.
And wasn't that video on CNN or something like that? Like, didn't you had a story about how your mom saw you in America? Like,
I had shot that video at school. It was a piece of toothpick art that my students had put together. It took them like 2 years to put it together. And in the video, I was an idiot, and I said, "Oh, it took them about 3 weeks." No, it took like 2 years. I had no idea. But it's this huge thing. This toothpick art, like 100,000 toothpicks in it. 97,000 something. I can't remember the exact number, but anyway, I had a new video camera, and I was at school on a Saturday, didn't have any lessons. And I thought, oh, what am I going to do with this camera? Oh, I'll go shoot that toothpick art. So I went over there and shot that and came back, and I showed it to the principal, and I said, "Can I put this up on YouTube to show it to my mom?" He goes, "Are there students in there?" I said, "Nope." He goes, "Did you talk about the school?" I said, "Nope." He goes, "Yeah, go ahead." So I came home, sat right here. Remember my old channel name? Warmouth Strat? It's not Warmouth Strat anymore. I was able to change it. But I was sitting here, and I was like, I didn't have a channel. What am I going to name my channel? And Mully was taken. Mully Man's taken. Every Mully thing that I could think of was taken. Yeah. So I looked over, my guitar sitting here. It was a Warmouth, and it's a Stratocaster. I said, all right, Warmouth Strat. So I just did that. And I put the video up. This was a Saturday afternoon, about 4 o'clock. About 8 o'clock, I came up here because I sent the link to my mom so she could see it. Yeah. It's the only thing I did with it. Hell, I didn't know anything about social media at the time. Yeah. And, it was 2010, right? Yeah, so, like all this stuff was still in its infancy. Hell, Facebook was just a year old at that time. Yeah. I came back up here later that evening to check see if my mom had watched it. And there were like 600 views on it. I was like, what? So I called Kurt. Remember Kurt?
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah.
I called Kurt and said, Kurt, my video's got 600 views. Oh, cool. He goes, keep an eye on that. So the next morning I got up Sunday, 6,000. I was like, oh my God. Got up Monday morning, it's like 15,000.
That's insane. That's viral.
My God. It's been up a day and a half, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. At that time, that was considered viral at the time, you know? Mm-hmm. And I was driving to work on Monday morning, and my phone beeped, and I looked, and it was a message from my mom. My video was on CNN. It had only been up a day and a half, and they picked it up for like their viral video or something. It was on like the 6 o'clock news or something, you know.
That's cool.
And I've actually got that video saved on my Facebook page.
Oh, cool.
I have that video from CNN.
That is neat.
It's pretty cool. But then you and Steve and a couple other people shouted me out, and I won the award for that. I got nominated in December, and you guys started shouting me out, and I actually won the damn thing.
We're telling people to go vote for you, right?
Huh. I was like, guess I have to make videos now. And I haven't been anywhere near that since.
Well, no, you were making content pretty regularly. I mean, you were making content. You and Kurt. So Kurt Bell, for any of you guys who know the old Japan video days, Softy Papa, who's still super active on his Instagram and his Facebook. Like he's more than epic. Like he's just so many videos every day.
Plowing away, isn't he?
Oh yeah, he's plowing away, and then he's getting close to retirement. So he's talking about the return to Japan and the return of Softy Papa. You know, like all that stuff.
Right.
I saw him share something on his Instagram the other day or Facebook where he sold his motorcycle, and he said, he'd been his last 10 years in America. The motorcycle's got him all over the place, but he's retiring and retiring the motorcycle. And when he returns to Japan, it's walking back on again. Which I think that's cool. And I mean, I think so many people, Kurt, if you are listening, I'll let you know we talked about you. I think there's so many people who are really excited about the return of Softy Papa because I think Kurt's videos were almost of like a cult status. Because, and I have to admit, what I loved about his videos at the time, and we were all doing really different things, was it wasn't the glitz, the glam of Tokyo and all the coolness. Right. And it wasn't just like, this is Inaka, small town Japan. It was like this guy with a really calm, soothing voice. Yeah. Like wandering through abandoned villages. And
I always said his voice is Bob Ross made love to Kermit the Frog.
Oh boy.
Right. Hello, friends. I remember the first video of his I saw with Kurt, and I worked together.
Yeah.
And we didn't really talk very much at the beginning because, we're working and blah, blah, blah. And he's not very sociable at work. So, and he knows it. I mean, I'm not saying anything that he doesn't know, and he'll openly admit it. So this girl that I was working with, she says, "Have you seen his YouTube channel?" I was like, "YouTube channel?" And she goes, "Yeah." He goes, "You got to see this." So I go and load up a video, and he's like, "Beyond the foothills of Shizuoka." You know how he talks, right? Like some National Geographic video, right?
David Attenborough.
Beyond the last village, as the sun is dipping below the mountains. I'm like, oh my God, what a dork, right? So, but then he got me into YouTube,
Well, I mean, and you know what? His videos have just a quality about them that, again, they're very unique in a great way, and I think that's where he really, had a niche.
Yeah.
And I think that I think there's a lot of people now. Who are into there's a whole genre of videos about like urban exploration, haikyo, right? People going to abandoned places and stuff. And there's a lot of American and European and stuff YouTubers who've come really big with those channels. Millions of subscribers. They do it professionally. Who travel to Japan to attempt to do what Kurt was doing. But I think
and don't even come close.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, they're just like, you're in Japan. It's so cool, man. Look at this abandoned place. Yeah, and then it just doesn't come close. Where Kurt would be walking.
Kurt was never on any well-beaten path.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
He was out in the thick. Yeah, he was out in the forest. Yeah,
he was out in the woods. He was out in the forest, and these weren't places that he was finding because other YouTubers had been there before him, or there had been this. He was like literally just like bushwhacking it.
He was Lewis and Clark out there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So I think that's what made that so special. But yeah, I mean. And one of the cool things I'm hoping to do as I move forward with this podcast is to catch up with some people from the old Just Japan podcast. It was really amazing to chat with Andrew Higgins in an episode. You'll know that
I miss him.
Yeah, he's still living life in Japan, and he's a huge hockey fan. He's still on.
Now he got switched over to Shikoku or something, right? Did he get moved somewhere?
He was down in Awaji Island for a while near Shikoku,
right?
Between Kobe and Shikoku for a while.
Okay.
And then he left and went back up kind of where he was before. So he's now
near Hiroshima, right?
No,
somewhere near Hiroshima. No, that was. I
thought he was like north. I thought he was like north of Tokyo, the Ibaraki or something. I don't know. Wherever.
Oh, okay.
Andrew, where are you? But he's really into ice hockey, and he's still active on X. Twitter, and posting lots of stuff about hockey and going to hockey games, and just he's really into the hockey thing, which is really cool.
And then how's PJ doing?
Oh, PJ's still PJ.
I haven't seen him. I haven't seen hide nor hair of him at all. Nothing from him.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, PJ is doing great. PJ was on an episode of this podcast not that long ago talking about university work. I brought that topic back up from the old days because a lot of people were interested in it. Sure. But no, we're still, we co-host a podcast with another friend, about that game Munzy, the Munzy Maniacs podcast, kind of like geocaching.
Are you still geocaching?
I don't know. I might start again. I haven't done it yet since I've come to Malaysia, but I should. I gave it up.
At least check, see what's out there.
I gave it up in China because it was just impossible to play in China because of all the GPS mess up stuff. It's called the China GPS offset, where even when you're using VPNs, it's all messed up. So like where it shows like it is on a map, the actual geocache is probably like literally like half a mile down the road.
Gotcha.
So none of it makes sense. So eventually I just gave up with frustration. I'm like, this is BS. I can't do this. But now I'm not in China. So I may start. But yeah, PJ's doing good. He's doing good. We were back in Japan in June. And we were in Osaka with the family, and we hung out with him quite a few times. And he's still doing the same thing. He's working at universities in Osaka and area Kansai, and he's good.
Well, when you talk to him, tell him I said hello.
Yeah, PJ, you better be listening to this. Yeah. So, folks, again, this is a different vibe in this episode. We're catching up.
Yeah.
So things changed a lot since the last I've talked. I guess when is the last time I talked to you?
It's been a while.
Okay.
I mean, it's got years attached to it.
Okay. So
other than the occasional comment on Facebook.
Yeah.
Very occasional, right? Yeah.
True.
Actually, I see your wife more than I see you.
Ah. Oh, well, that's a good thing, I suppose. My face is very not flattering. Very not flattering. My face is not flattering. Yeah. So, I mean, we left Japan back in 2017. And for those of you who don't know, it always pained my heart to leave Japan. I didn't want to, but at the end of the day, I realized that I could better support my family and make more money elsewhere. So we decided.
Actually, I thought after China, when the China thing was coming to an end, I thought you were coming back here, and then you went to Malaysia.
Yeah. Funny how that works, right?
There was talk about coming back here, right? I'm not mistaken. That, right?
Oh no, you're not mistaken.
Okay.
You're not mistaken. I still want to. I still plan to one of these days. I'm going to at least retire there because it'll be a hell of a lot cheaper than it would be in Canada right now with the way inflation is and stuff. The intentions were there. And the last job cycle, like when I was looking for work for international teachers, that's really from about September until the new year. That's the kind of the window or the frame when international schools are looking to hire for the next school year.
Sure.
And I was interviewing with schools all around the world. I was interviewing with schools in Japan. I interviewed with I think it was something like more than 30 interviews. So there were some very, there were potential jobs in Japan. But I kind of, in a way, was outvoted by my family, who said they didn't want to return at this point in time. I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think being able to do what I'm doing now, like this kind of really, true international teacher thing, allows me to have the opportunity to work in a lot of different countries, and with that, lots of neat new cultural experiences, learning just learning all these new things, being in new places. And it is exciting. It's very interesting. So I think that's kind of what
I think 6 years.
Yeah. I left.
Cause like I've been seeing pictures of the kids, right?
Yeah.
And they're like completely growing up. Right. And I was like,
horrible.
Oh man, Kai probably hate me now.
No. He's still a lovely kid. He's a lovely kid. He's just bigger and smellier. And he doesn't listen to this. So no, I love him dearly. He's right now at a camp for 4 days in like the jungles.
Oh, okay.
Of He's having an insane adventure right now with the entire middle and high school from our school are off into different parts of the country on these big week-long trips. And he's off doing that. Like speedboating down rivers and building kayaks and all kinds of stuff. But yeah. So we, I had a promising offer from a school in Japan and then one from here in Malaysia, and we decided to go with Malaysia. We've been here for 2 months now. And so
how is Malaysia?
It is, it's so different than, of course it's different than any place I've lived. It's a different country. Sure. It is, it's cool. I mean, it's not temperature wise, mind you. It is a true tropical country. So for me, I was a nature weenie. I always loved my animals, my wildlife and bugs. This is the place, man. Like there is just crazy stuff all over the place. Like there's just friggin' crazy, insane insects all the time. In the weirdest places, there's like monkeys all over the place. There's monkeys all over the place. Like just, I walk out into the road in front of my apartment and there's like 2 different species of monkeys. There's big troops of them around. There's like all kinds of animals I've never seen of before. Didn't know what they are. There's things like pangolins and
what?
Pangolins are those, like, they look like an armadillo, but covered in kind of like an armadillo, like a really ultra armored armadillo. They were talking about during, the COVID years of maybe one of the reasons why that happened in like China was people were eating them. Like there was sort of talking about the wild pangolin, people poaching them and eating them. And maybe that's where, cute armored critters. But there's a lot of wacky stuff. So the nature thing, it's ticking all the boxes there. It's the people.
And then of course the heat.
That's, I don't like that so much, but it is what it is.
Hotter than a jalapeno's armpit, huh?
Oh yeah. All the time. But the people are fantastic. People in Malaysia are really mellow people. They're really chill, easygoing. happy people. And what you get a lot, which is after 10 years in Japan, 6 years in China, what I'm not used to, I go walking down the road and just strangers wave to you and smile. They're like, hello, how are you? And just people honk their horn and wave to you from their cars. And I'm like, why are they doing this? And then just people wave from their motorbikes and wave at you. And you're like,
Sure.
what's happening? I don't know him. I don't know who's that. And then you realize, oh, I don't know them and they don't know me, but they're just happy and they're just waving and saying hello.
Nice. Yeah, cool.
They're being nice. And it kind of reminds me of like growing up in small town Eastern Canada. That's what it was like when I was growing up. People would just like wave to strangers and say hi. And I haven't had that since I was a kid. Too. So it's like that. So
it's like that back in Kentucky too. You know,
yeah. So it's cool.
You drive down the road, people wave at you.
Yeah. It's definitely
walking home from school. You definitely somebody pick you up and give you a ride home. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of got that vibe here, but it's I don't know. I guess unless you're like in Kuala Lumpur, it is definitely less.
Hold on. If any American kids are out there listening, please do not hitchhike. That was a thing from the 1980s. We do not do that anymore.
Yeah. Mully does not condone hitchhiking.
In the 80s, it was safe. It's not anymore.
Was it really safe? I listen to true crime podcasts. I don't know. But yeah. So it's just a very different vibe. It's I've got a lot to learn. The food is fantastic. There's so many different kinds. It's I'm on. So, but Malaysia is, got like the main part is like a peninsula, and there's like other islands and things, and up the kind of very north of the main peninsula, closer to Thailand.
Are you in a big city or near a big city?
No, not really. I'm on an island called Penang Island. It's a resort island. A lot of Japanese people come here. A lot of Japanese tourists. And there is a city called Georgetown, which is I think like about 600,000 people. And then where I'm at, I'm kind of like on a little bit further away. I'm like 7 or 8 kilometers away from the city. And it's pretty Inaka, man, where I'm at. We have a family mart. There's a brand new, amazing family mart. It's very Japanesey, which is great.
Nice.
And there's a Starbucks about a couple of kilometers walk away. Sure. But it's quiet. It's very different than the life I experienced in China.
Kev, are you still running?
No, I don't run anymore. No, don't do that. My knee told me a couple of years back, it said, hey, you know what? I don't like this. And my knee said, and then that was my left knee. And then my left knee said, you know what? You're going to stop now. And I'm going to fall apart on you. So no.
Mully Gump popped up in my recommended videos a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, look at that. So I, watched it. I was like, oh, there's Kevin.
So for those of you listening who may not know, a lot of you're learning things about Kevin in this podcast episode. I used to be an avid marathon runner when I lived in Japan, and I used to run a lot of full marathons and stuff, but I quit doing that. And actually I tore stuff in my knee last year. And I would actually, if I ever want to be a runner again, I would have to have surgery. I don't want to be a runner again. I may get surgery at some point on my knee, but just so I can.
Okay.
But yeah, so.
I can advertise for you a little bit. After the earthquake and tsunami in 2011, my wife and I made a video called Mully Gump. And it was basically, remaking that opening scene from Forrest Gump where they're sitting on the thing. And I said, my friend Kevin, he'll be running. And we showed Kevin running. And what we did for that was Kevin ran an ultra marathon.
Yes.
You ran from Kobe to Osaka and back in one day. And that's like a marathon and a half, right?
It was basically, yes. Yeah, it was like over 60 kilometers. I think it was like,
right?
Around 60. Yeah.
And actually that day was the same day as a YouTube party in Tokyo.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And something happened like towards the end, you were just like, oh, I'm dying here. Yeah.
It was rough. It was rough.
Kevin, get a taxi, go home.
It was, and what was really cool at that point in time, so that was like 2000, that was 2011. It was still in 2011. And there was a running app that I had gotten. I'd been like gifted by a company.
Right.
Like when I said I was going to do.
We're getting some stuff going here.
Ooh.
Is that going to be hello? It's coming when you talk.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sounds all good on my end. Oh, well.
Okay.
I don't know. Hopefully it won't be too bad. Hopefully you guys don't hear static. On my end, it sounds okay.
Maybe it's just my cheap speakers.
I don't know. But yeah. So basically, there was a company called RunMeter that had a neat app, and they sent it to me, and had this like really cutting edge technology at the time. When I connected it to my Twitter account and I connected it to my Facebook, when people typed comments to me or added me or something in Twitter, the app would read it to me, which was like very, very new and cool at the time. So it was really neat. Was the whole day there were people just, I think I got like more than 200 people on Twitter wrote to me and said things, and people on Facebook were encouraging me and cheering me on. And that was really cool because there were some dark times.
Right. Kevin, hold on just a second. I want to play a YouTube video real quick, just see if it's my speakers. Hold on.
Okay, sure thing.
Yes, it is. Okay. It's coming from my speakers.
Okay, so you've got some speakers that need some massaging.
Yeah, I got some cheap Sengo Hyakuin Amazon Basics.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
No, it sounds great. It sounds great with us. So, yeah. So, so here I am now. I'm in Malaysia. You're in Shizuoka. I'm hoping to get back there one day, but I'm going to be here for a few years anyway. And we'll see. We'll see. I guess one of the things I looked at was a bit surprising for me. One of the big reasons why we decided not to go back to Japan was the taxes.
Sure.
And what would have happened with being an international school teacher, what I learned, there's a lot of things that I guess maybe you had to really dig deep when looking at the different jobs in Japan, even like a lot of the really big reputable schools. A standard thing that happens at international schools when you're a teacher, it's part of this, you get we call it a package. So you don't just get a salary, but there's other kind of bonuses and things to entice experienced people to come from other countries to work there and do this job. So one of the typical things, someone like me, I have 2 children. And normally what a school does is they say, okay, your children can attend the school for free. We waiver the tuition. And it's very standard practice. But what we learned
wasn't playing that game, huh?
Well, what we learned in Japan is they will play that game in a way, but this is what they do. They say, we'll waiver your tuition, but here's what we do. We're going to add that tuition as a taxable benefit to your salary. So for example, if you were getting paid, so basically if I'm just going to throw a couple of numbers. If tuition is $20,000 a year per child times 2, that's $40,000. So basically I'm going to be taxed on that $40,000, even though I don't make that money. So that $40,000 that would cost tuition, they would kind of imaginarily attach that to my salary, bolster my salary by an extra $40,000, which I don't get, but I'm going to have to pay taxes on that.
Right.
And then also like an apartment stipend, the same thing. I would be taxed on that as well. So although I would be making maybe, $50,000, $60,000 a year, I'd be getting taxed in a bracket that would be maybe as if I were getting paid over $100,000 a year.
Sure.
So I'd be just getting murdered on my taxes. And we looked at things like that. And it was just like, this isn't worth it at this point in life. I'm going to get, and who knows, maybe that was kind of, and I was talking to people who work at schools and they were kind of saying, don't just go elsewhere for now, but again, the long-term plans are for Japan for sure, because that's where my heart is. And that's, again, it's also more affordable and it just makes sense for me. And to be honest, I feel more comfortable there than I have in any other place I've lived. And I mean, you're there now for over 30 years. Obviously you feel the same way, right?
Yeah.
It's
people,
and
I have no plans on going back.
Yeah. And I know people have asked you that over the years. You're like, and I think people ask that all, there's a lot, most people who meet expats in one country or another just assume that everyone's just transitory and just moving on through and passing through.
Right.
And when they meet folks who've been there for 20, 30, 40 years, they're just like, what? So Jim,
we're having some technical issues.
We've been talking about me a lot here, but for those who might not know, who you are, I'm going to encourage them to go back and listen to some episodes of the Just Japan podcast. I'll share those in the Facebook group and stuff like that. But you've been in Japan now for over 30 years. And
Right.
what does someone in Shizuoka do for 30 years? Like what's been keeping you there?
Well, you know what, Kevin, I've always felt that, once when you move over here.
Yeah.
Now, I came over here under a different situation. Like a lot of people come over here because they've got that dream of being in Japan and the cosplay and, all this and all that and anime and all that. Mine had absolutely nothing to do with that. I met a Japanese girl in the States. We got married and we came over here. And when I got here, I was like, wow, I love this place. Let's come back here. And I said to my mom, I said, because my mom was here because we came over for a wedding. We had our Japanese wedding here. Mm-hmm. And my mom came over and we were at my first wife's parents' house. And I was standing out on the veranda one evening having a cigarette, which, by the way, I am 7.5 years cigarette free now, Kevin.
Congratulations, sir. That's amazing.
So, yes, I stopped in February of 2016.
Nice. I remember that.
Anyway, so I was out on the veranda having a cigarette, and my mom was out there with me. The sun was going down. I looked at my mom and I said, you know what? I think I'm supposed to be here. And she said, what do you mean? I said, I don't know. I said, I've just got this really strong feeling that this is the place where I'm supposed to be. And I said, would you mind if I come back here for a year or two just to see? I mean, I was 21, 22 years old at the time.
Okay.
And she said, yeah, you're young, get out, see the world. So came over, 1 year became 2, 2 became 3, 3 became 4, then ex-wife, new wife, and blah, blah, blah. Now I'm 32 years and
yeah,
there
you are.
So, but it's, once you're here, and I think this is what happens with the people that come over with the dream of, 24-hour cosplay and anime, is that you realize once you're here, that doesn't really exist. I mean, it's here, but when you start working, you got a day-to-day job. I mean, life is life,
Yeah.
And I think when people get over here and they think, I have to work. Yeah, you got to work.
You got to pay those bills somehow.
And the job sucks. Yeah, but you got to do it.
Yeah, because you got to pay the bills, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not buying that. You're not buying that little Bo Peep dress without a job.
Exactly. That's one thing with some continuity. Back in the day when I lived in Kobe, I used to see this middle-aged gentleman who would dress as Little Bo Peep. He was a rather tall, lanky fella. And he would dress up as a Little Bo Peep and have a staff. And I'd often see him at Senomiya Station in Kobe getting on the train going towards Osaka. Ironically enough, it was like last summer, there we were. And who did my daughter spot on the train platform?
Oh, my God.
The same guy. Cool. He's looking older now. He's probably pushing 60. But he was still dressed like Little Bo Peep, man. And it was just like, oh, my God, that guy.
Right.
Yes.
No, now he's little old peep.
Little old peep. Exactly. And that's one of the things I think we talked about on some episodes in the past was that whole thing is like when you get there. And I mean, I love Japan dearly. It's great and all, but
sure.
When you get there, and you have to work, it's life, right? And you learn that no matter where you are.
The aura gets knocked off of it pretty quick.
Exactly.
Because you got to work. I mean, you got a job and, you wake up, you put your pants on the same way here as you do back there.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's like me as an international school teacher. I may have done it in Japan, Korea, Malaysia, China. But at the end of the day, I'm teaching kids phonics the same way. I got kids saying, no, I don't want to do that the same way. Yeah. I got kids who, it's the same thing. It's the same experiences that I have in Canada or any other country. I'm a teacher, right? You're a teacher. And
right.
It's for me. Then I clean up my classroom. I put on my backpack and I walk home and I come home to my family and then I sit down and I relax and maybe watch some like videos or this or that or Netflix.
Well, and the other thing is, Kevin, when you're 25, 26, 23, 24, 25, 26, and you're going to work and then you go out drinking with your friends and you're having a good time and all that. But then when you start pushing past 30, you're like, I just want to go home and watch TV.
Right.
I don't,
Exactly.
But you push it out for a few more years.
Yeah.
And then you're the pathetic 40-year-old in the bar with all the young guys, right?
Yeah. Right. We always
And you
wondered
don't want to be there, but you kind of feel like you have to be.
when I was in Korea, like in 2002, 2003, teaching as a 20-something English teacher, we often wondered what the deal was with those guys. We'd be all partying, and everyone was like we were all in our like early to mid 20s, and then you'd find these outliers. You'd have these guys who are kind of in the same scene group who are single and in their 40s. And clearly dressing and trying to look like they're in their early 20s, and it wasn't working. And you're kind of like, "What's up with this?" Or I'd meet these. There was a couple of kind of notorious English teachers in the place I lived in Korea who were. There was a guy we just called him Kiwi Rob. And Kiwi Rob. I don't know what his last name was. He was a New Zealander named Rob who he seemed to know when every one of us had our payday because he'd come knock on your door on your payday, like, "Hey man, can I borrow like $100? Just I'll get it back to you in a couple of weeks, man." And he would just apparently go from person to person to person. And you're like, wait a sec, like, what is this like late 40-something-year-old single guy who's like teaching at an English school like me? What's going on with this guy?
Why is he broke?
Why is he always broke? Well,
right.
And it's
that was the one thing that I never became the lounge lizard, That was one thing I never did. But I've been married pretty much my whole time here.
Yeah.
I had one stint of about 3 years where I was single, and that's about it. And to be completely honest, I do not miss being single at all.
Neither do I. I mean, that's I was married when I got married. I met my wife outside of I met my wife outside of Japan, my Japanese wife. I met her in Korea.
Right.
We got married. We were together for a few years before I came to Japan. And then, we got married as soon as I arrived, basically. But we were together. We were living together as soon as, she met me at the airport, Kansai Airport. And she's like, "Here's your keitai, Kevin. And here's, I'll take you to Kobe to your apartment and stuff." Our apartment together where we live now. And that's where we ended up starting our family and having the kids there and stuff. And I can actually say that in the 10 years I lived in Japan, I've never actually been inside a nightclub in Japan, ever, of any kind. And even, I got to admit, because of how expensive it is, I mean, I'd go to izakayas sometimes, but I was just a convenience store warrior. Like, I'd just buy some beer at the convenience and bring it home or the supermarket, cheaper, and bring it home. Because even all those expat bars, like those places like the Hub and things like that in Japan, they're so expensive.
Yeah.
Like $10 a beer, $12 a beer.
Yeah. Where did all that money go, Kevin? Good Lord. I mean, how much did we spend back in the day just on drinking?
Oh gosh, I don't even want to think about that. I was just telling you.
I mean, and I look at my life now, and I'm like, I'm in a much better position than I was back then. I can't afford to do that.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
How did I afford that back then?
Exactly right, and that's the thing. You don't drink, I don't drink now. I haven't had a drink in a few years. And I look back, I make more money now than I ever used to make when I was younger.
Yeah.
And yet, how did I do that?
I pretty much stopped drinking when I was 30.
Okay.
And since then, I've had, a couple occasions where I've had something. I mean, I'm not opposed to drinking. I just stopped drinking. Way. So, but I can count on both hands how many times I've been drinking in the past 25 years. And probably the last time I had something to drink was probably an actual drinking, like getting drunk, only twice in 25 years.
Oh, okay.
Only 2 times. Yeah. And then usually I'll get a mouthful. I'm like, nah, I'm good. But I think I can't even remember the last time I tasted alcohol. It's been good 5-6 years, maybe more.
I'm a fan of the beer taste. So what's really cool now is that there's a lot of, I experienced when I was in Canada. There's, I guess, a growing market of people who choose not to drink, who don't want to drink, but they like that beer taste. So there's actually now craft breweries popping up in America that make non-alcohol beer, but it's really good stuff. And we used to call
that near beer back in the day.
We used to, but I mean, back in the day, it tasted like it
but it wasn't as good.
Oh, it was terrible, man.
It tasted. It was
awful.
Garbage,
it was horrible. I can remember trying it years ago, and it's just ugh. This doesn't taste like beer.
Kev, what we were talking about in between little recordings here, you were drinking Coca-Cola Zero.
Yes, I drink.
That doesn't taste anything like Diet Coke.
No, it doesn't. It's way better. Yeah.
Diet Coke was horrible.
Yes, I remember that. Diet
It was like
Pepsi,
drinking a big mouthful of chemicals.
Yeah, exactly. It was like, now I drink.
At least Coke Zero kind of tastes like Coke, you know?
Yes, it does. It does.
Yeah.
Because that's one of my beer replacements now. Now I don't drink that much because I realize how much if I drink like many bottles of that a day, it's not going to help me out. But you know, it's but yeah. So again, you put your pants on the same way you do in Japan as you do in America or the UK. Just a different place.
Yep.
It's interesting, and that's the thing. Like with this podcast, I've been interviewing expats who live around the world or live all around Asia in different countries, and that's what I find too. In many ways, especially as you get older and you kind of have that repetition in life of the job, the routine. For me, like my Malaysian adventure happens on Saturdays and Sundays, on my weekends and my holidays, because during the week, you know, by the time I come back from teaching I teach grade 2, right? My students are 7 and 8 years old.
Sure.
After spending a day in a room with 7 and 8 year olds, when I'm done that day, man, I just want to go home and lick my wounds. Just chill out.
Right.
I've got no adventure left in me. It's not. So on Saturday, I'm like, okay, now I'll go outside and explore Malaysia and try new foods and try things. And that also depends on how tired I am from the week before. So,
well, you know, the other thing is, the one thing I wanted to say is, like, the people that are out there, look, guys, if you're, now this doesn't cover everybody, obviously it's a kind of a blanket statement, but it shouldn't be, but for the it's pretty reliable. If you're not happy where you are, you're not going to be happy here.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You know, I mean, you're not just going to come over here and this is a great place. And, you know, it is a great place, but you have to be willing to make the changes to, you know, I mean, you got to be flexible.
I know what you're saying. Like back in the day, we'd record episodes of the Just Japan podcast, and that was a theme that would come up with PJ. Because I remember PJ, when PJ was making vlogs back in like the early 2000s, he would be inundated with like these young anime fans and stuff. Who were just like, I just want to come to Japan because, you know, I'm bullied in school and life's horrible here in America and I hate everything. But if I go to Japan, everything will be better. And it's that's all stuff that you got to fix yourself about yourself. Yeah. You know, because a place is just a place, right? If you're unhappy in life, often a lot of that has to do with yourself or your situation.
Well, like we said before, you put your pants on the same way here as you do over there. Yeah. So you know, if you're not willing to make some changes yourself, you know, then
exactly. Like if
life could be great where you're at. If you're willing to make some changes, but I can understand wanting a new scene. Yeah. You know, but if you're going to get that new scene, then if you're going to change the place, change the feelings that come with it. You know, change the attitude that goes with, you know, new place, new person, you know?
Yeah. For sure. Yeah. I agree. You know what? You've got a class coming up soon.
I've got a class here in town. Yeah. So there we go, kids. I'm going to be starting a lesson at 10 o'clock at night.
That's right. So, you know, there you go. And he's not dressed in cosplay. No, not yet. Anyway, maybe when I hit end on this Zoom, it'll happen. But
yeah, I did my day job today, came home, and then I was free in the evening till hooking up with you. Usually I've got a lesson at this time, but my Thursday night student switched to Wednesday night this week because she's got something to do today. So that gave me the time to do this with you tonight. Yeah. And cool. And it's so good to see and talk to you again, Ken.
Yeah, I absolutely appreciate it, Jim. It's been so cool catching up with you. It's been a long time. We'll do this again soon without the recording. We'll just do it on the Zoom and we won't record it. But folks, you know, this guy, he was a podcaster too for a while and a video maker and all that stuff. And
well, you know, Kev, my podcast is not officially over. It's just Dave and I have not have a chance to get together because the Rona started, right? Yeah. And we didn't want to be sitting face to face right next to each other here, blah, blah, blah. And then we just haven't gotten back into it, but I think we will.
Oh, you should.
Eventually. I mean, you know, I get messages from people. When are you guys going to do another podcast?
Yeah,
It's been like three years, you know?
Right. It's amazing. That's the thing.
Yeah, I'd like to do more. Sure.
Cool. Well, you get on Dave and you get him going to get that.
Yeah. Actually, I was with Dave this afternoon.
Oh, well, there we go. Cool. Get that podcast happening.
We had lunch together.
Cool. And in a little while, Kurt will be back, and you guys can make some content together because it sounds like it's raring to go.
Yeah.
So that's so cool.
All right, Kevin.
Well, yeah. Well, thanks, Mully, for coming on the Just Asia podcast. A very different vibe than other episodes, folks, but I'm sure you're going to like it too. And Jim, it's been great catching up.
Can I sign off with Big Paul?
Sure thing, sir.
Howdy, this here's Big Paul coming at you live from Shizuoka, Japan. Now, I want you guys to have a good rest of the week. And remember, life's a lot simpler if you plow around the stumps.
All right, Big Paul. All right, take care, sir.
All right, Cav.
That was an amazing conversation. It was so fun to catch up with Mully after all these years. And he's still active on Facebook, doing some things, and I'm really hoping that he's going to get the Mully's Place podcast up and going sometime soon. All right, guys, well, that does it for this episode. I want to thank all of you who have been back and listening. Again, there are so many of you, and I've been really rewarded by seeing the stats as I look at them on my hosting provider, Libsyn, of how many of you are out there downloading these episodes and listening. Thank you so much for sticking around. Thank you so much for having hope that one day the Just Japan podcast would be coming back. Of course, you can follow me on Twitter, on X. As ugly as that place has gotten, I'm still there. It's not as awesome as it used to be because I was such a Twitter fan. But follow me at Mad for Maple. The handle has changed. I used to have another handle back in the day when I was recording the podcast before, but I lost that account and it's gone, and that's it. So I have at Mad for Maple. So check that out. I'm also, if any of you are on Bluesky, that is the Twitter alternative. I'm also Mad for Maple. You can, of course, email the podcast at justjapanpodcast@gmail.com. Join the Facebook group, the Just Japan Stuff Facebook group. The link is below. Or just do a search on Facebook for Just Japan Stuff. There's a lot of stuff there. I'm sharing a lot of pictures from my different albums of my trips to Japan and different links and things like that. So go check out that place as well. Let's get it more lively in there. Also check out my Instagram at JLandKev. Go follow all those places. The links are all below in the show notes here in the episode. Again, thank you so much for listening to the podcast. And, hold on a second. Got something else for you to listen to right here. Do you like the paranormal? Interested in hauntings, historic castles, ancient battles, and spooky history from Japan? Well, then the Supernatural Japan podcast is for you. My name is Kevin O'Shea, and each week I host the Supernatural Japan podcast. I bring you tales of ghostly shrines and castles, haunted department stores, urban legends, UFO sightings, and lots of spooky from the mysterious land of the rising sun. Go listen to the Supernatural Japan podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and wherever else you find podcasts. Alrighty, so go and check out the Supernatural Japan podcast. That says it all right there. Go check it out. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for downloading the podcast. I really appreciate it. Thank you for taking the time. Please share the Just Japan podcast with your friends who are into Japan. Let people know that the OG of Japan podcast is back, the Just Japan podcast. Let's get the show growing even bigger and bigger and better. So, hey, again, this is one of the originals, and it's back. Episode 205 just recorded, and so that's it, guys. So what's going on with me? I've just got a little less than 2 weeks of teaching before my winter holiday happens, and I've got a nice, big, long, fat winter holiday. And I'm going to be traveling to Kuala Lumpur with my family and doing some other things, of course, producing the podcast and seeing where the Just Japan podcast is going to take you and where it's going to take me, interviewing lots of cool people. Already got some fun, fantastic new interviews lined up in the next coming days and weeks. And a lot of fun things are going to be happening. So that's it, everyone. My name's Kevin O'Shea. I am a Canadian expat living in Asia. This is my 22nd year coming up living in Asia. South Korea, Japan, China, Malaysia. but you know my heart's in Japan. All right, guys. And, gonna have some updates coming in the next episode about some Japanese learning that I'm doing some Japanese language study, because in the grand scheme of things, I plan to be returning to Japan for good in the next few years, and I plan on retiring in Japan with my wife and all that stuff. So more to come on that, but I've recently started doing some language study, so I'll give you a little update on that and let you know what I'm doing. All right. Well, that's it, guys. No matter where you are in the world, I hope you're happy. I hope you're healthy. And I'll be talking to you really soon.